I've also been tasked on reporting out on Fenimore. I've had a couple of conversations for the DEP. What I asked for were status and progress reports on capping. I was also very interested in receiving information on whatever complaints had been filed by the public and their resolution. And this is the update report they had sent to me. It is being shared with Roxbury so that we're all on the same page. But the gas collection and treatment system continues to operate 24/7. The DEP is treating about 1 ton of hydrogen sulfide a day. Odor complaints are virtually non-existent. The few that have been received were investigated and found to be unrelated to the landfill. One was actually a complaint about a smell of raw sewage, which turned out to be just that, a smell of raw sewage related to the landfill. DEP met last week with Roxbury Township Fire and Police to review activities on site and update emergency response to the site should a problem arise. A site visit by officials was included in this meeting. A notice of intent to award a construction contract for capping the site was issued by the Department of Treasury on July 3rd. The state is currently in a state law mandated 10 business day protest period. At the conclusion of this time period, if there are no protests, a contract will be awarded and work will begin approximately 30 business days later. That concludes my report on Fenimore.
If you've already spoken and you would like to speak on the Fenimore issue, you are welcome to. I just remind everybody that we do have a 3-minute rule, and I just, again, implore upon you all to be respectful to the council and to staff tonight. When we're speaking, we will be equally respectful back to you. We've certainly made a lot of effort in the last 30 days to open up the pathways of communication to both the DEP and to Roxbury Township, which the acting executive director shared in her report. We'll allow some latitude in terms of questions and answers, but we're not going to turn it into an interrogation. But if you have an informational question that we can answer, we'll certainly do it. If you have some more in-depth questions, we will certainly provide you access to a staff member if we can be of any assistance. With that, we'll open up to the Fenimore issue. If somebody would like to speak, now is the opportunity. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Ken Collins from Andover. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today. Finding out just now that in 31 to 40 days that work for capping might begin on the landfill is a bit disturbing. And I wanted to thank the council for making the empty gesture of writing to Bob Martin at NJDEP and asking to be kept informed about their progress at Fenimore Landfill. This gesture would have some teeth if you would pass a motion to rescind the redevelopment designation that you granted that reopened the landfill to the new dumping and resulted in the current debacle at the site. I urge the Highlands Council to pass such a motion immediately, thereby showing the community that you'll put your money where your mouth is and play the only card you have in your hand. That's it, that's all you got. Rescinding the designation may be an empty gesture in your eyes, but not in the eyes of the community, and not in the eyes of those who've been harmed by this disastrous boondoggle of a project. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak this evening? Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Bob Schultz from Roxbury, and I'm also the president of REACT. I want to thank each and every one of you for putting the landfill on the agenda here tonight, or this afternoon, to hear our concerns about the health and well-being of not only the humans, but the animals and the environment. I wanted to also thank you for giving us an update from the NJDEP. We learned a lot more here today than we have at our council meetings, the last 3 of them combined. There was a lot more information here, and we appreciate that. Last meeting, actually, let me go back. The Highlands Council is here to protect and monitor the well-being of resources in the Highlands area. Last meeting, you said it would do no good, have no practical effect not an appropriate time to take action to rescind the approval of the solar, and that if you did, it would not have an impact on our lives and not be a false, empty gesture. I would completely disagree with you. By rescinding that waiver, it would prevent from the council making the same mistake twice. By doing this, you're showing that the council has the power to protect the islands in which you are charged with. It would force any future development of this land to come before the council again. By rescinding the waiver, it would prevent the other 2/3 of the Fenimore site from becoming another disaster. By doing this, it is a true and full gesture to the residents of Roxbury, and it will make an impact on all the lives in their futures and all of our futures. You might not know this, but Drake's Brook has a stressor indicator study completed on it in 2010. That report, as of last week, was still deliberative and not available to the public. Inside information from people at the NJDEP tell us that the report is not favorable at all. And in fact, it is said that if this report came out before you granted the waiver, the project, the Fenimore project, would have been significantly delayed or even canceled until further environmental testing occurred. To protect the Highlands, the drinking water to millions, and the residents of Roxbury, I ask you to reconsider rescinding the waiver immediately. And I also ask you to draft and send resolutions to the NJDEP to conduct core soil sampling before the capping process begins. You do have that power, and it will help, and let us know exactly what is in that landfill, because it affects millions of people. It's not just the residents of Roxbury. And I don't know how we get a resolution done. I don't know if you have to vote on it or somebody has to make a motion for it, but I truly beg you to do so. The township has failed in the courts. The owner of the landfill has failed as well. The residents want to know, and it will relieve their fear and anxiety here. And in any type of remediation, you have to know what's in there first before you actually remediate.
I'm just going to need you to wrap up this.
You got it. Was there a letter to the NJDEP drafted? Did you draft one? Because I know that was said last meeting that you were going to draft a letter.
Just going to have to ask, we need to conclude now, but I will respond by saying that we did send a letter to Commissioner Moore at the DEP, and we also sent a letter to the Roxbury Township Administrator, Mayor, and Council.
The letter to Commissioner Mark is posted on the website.
Yes.
The letter to what? I didn't
It's posted on the website.
Oh, it's posted on the website?
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Yes.
And was the report that you gave also on the website too, or is?
The one I just gave?
Yeah, the one about Fenimore.
That's not on the website.
Will it be?
It's just a verbal report.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak this evening? Yes, ma'am.
Mary Ann Marie, Roxbury, New Jersey. As one of the families affected by Fenimore landfill, I would like to ask you to please rescind. Yes, it might not mean anything to you, but it would mean the world to us who are affected. Like Bob said, if somebody else were to buy the rest of Fenimore to do this again, I can't live through this again. I have asthma. I can only imagine what it's doing to the little kids with asthma because I know what it does to me. If I have to wear a mask in my own house, what are these little kids going through with their young lungs? Please, please consider rescinding this and helping the people of Roxbury so that we do not have to go through this again. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person? Yes, ma'am. Please.
Hi, my name is Kathy Pineda, and I live on Raritan Avenue, appropriately, and I have Drake's Brook in my backyard. We've lived here for 15 years, and I raised my youngest and the next to youngest playing in Drake's Brook and enjoying the beauty that we had there. We had the great blue heron and flipping rocks for crawfish. So I eagerly signed up for Raritan Headwaters stream monitoring for this year, just so I can see that the brown brook trout that are endangered have been gone for 2 years. I don't see any activity in it. And this year I was really alarmed when I saw that the mallards are not even going in the water anymore. We have a bunch of them that hang out. It's a little low area in my backyard between my 4 neighbors. And they'll go for the crack corn I put out for the birds, come on up, and then go play in the water. And they're not even going in the water. We don't even have water spiders. So I'm like, what is going on? So we signed up for stream monitoring. And despite what the DEP is saying, and despite what you'll say on a map, we have pictures and evidence, and Angela from Raritan Headwaters is going to test the portion of the stream that's feeding right into Ledgewood Brook, which goes into Drake's Brook, which is coming under the 40 feet of garbage to the Raritan Headwaters area. It is a stream. It goes under the garbage. It's from different streams up in the Poetseek above the Fenimore landfill, and it does travel through, pick up the toxins, and then deposit them in the water. What usually takes a half hour to find about 100 invertebrates, which we must, to send away to be studied, it took us an hour and a half. And I was finding things almost microscopic to count them so that we could find something living. And we weren't even upstream where it was coming right out of the landfill. So I would ask you, please, if you can overturn your decision. The DEP, it does not have the Highlands in any of their scope of what they should be doing. I know that you people do, and I thank you for caring about the water quality. I can't believe that the trout are gone. I used to love to watch the fly fishermen come through my yard, and I mean, when the water spiders are gone, it's going to be really bad, and this is going into the Raritan River. So please consider rescinding the motion, just so that the DEP knows that somebody is looking over their shoulder. Once it's capped, that water's still going to be flowing underneath through the toxins and into the river. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anybody else like to speak this evening? Yes, sir.
Banana, I belong to her. I have a question, because I don't understand how it goes. Does the Highlands Committee or Council report to the DEP? Are they?
We're separate, but within.
Okay, so my question is, if the DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, right? That's correct, Department of Environmental Protection. And that's supposed to be the environment, everything that's included. And I understand we have the emergency order, but the DEP is only looking at the smell abatement. Well, the Department of Environmental Protection should take into effect what Kathy just said and all the other things that are getting polluted and getting fouled up because of that. So how can, and since you guys work there, like I asked the last time, this time it's a little easier, I think, why is DEP having tunnel vision and only doing one thing, and nothing else counts? And environmental protection. I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself so many times, but environmental protection means the entire environment, not just mediating the smell. And I'm not even talking about the people who are getting sick. The Environmental Protection Agency, that's what they're supposed to do. I mean, it just bothers me that, so can anybody on this committee that I asked the last time for something else, but I'm asking, can anybody talk to the Environmental Commission and say, it's the entire environment, not just the abatement of the smell. I mean, you guys are part of that group. Environmental protection. So that means we can pollute, we can drop, I can go up there and I can put oil, gasoline, and anything else, but it's the smell. So before you tell me my time's almost up, I'd like to have somebody tell me that they're going to go talk to that guy who's the head of the DEP, because it bothered me, not only that I live there and my house is not worth what it used to be, but when Chris Christie comes out and says, Roxbury, deal with it, environmental protection. Can somebody answer that question for me? Can they talk to the Environmental Protection Agency and say, not just the smell, there's other stuff going on? Somebody answer that question? I think that's an easy question to answer. Can somebody do that?
Very done.
Yeah, answer my question. Somebody.
We are in constant dialogue with the DEP on this issue. We cannot instruct them what to do or how to handle it. It's not within our purview. And respectfully, you are out of time.
Oh, okay, respectfully, you're out of time, but hold on. You guys work for the DEP. You mean to tell me if somebody there is wrong and they're not doing what they should be, you're afraid because you work for them to say anything?
We don't work for the DEP.
You're part of that group, right?
We're part of the Highland Council.
Oh, yes, but you're a dotted line to them. So that means you don't want to talk to them, you don't care about the environment. So this whole Highland stuff.
I ask for respect. Your time is up. Please sit down. I'm not going to ask you again.
What are you going to do to me if I don't walk down?
I will call the police.
Well, call them. That'll be the good news. Call them.
I will. Don't
Okay,
test
good.
me. Don't test me. I ask for respect and decorum in this room,
And
sir.
I'm not getting
And you
respect.
push it every time. You push it every meeting, sir. And it's
Start-
not helping. And folks that are out there in the audience, this gentleman's not helping your cause by acting this way. I'm telling you up front.
I just asked you a
And
question.
I'm
You
telling
couldn't give me
you
the answer.
up front, we've been respectful. I've given you a lot of latitude to ask questions and give you answers. And I've asked for one thing back, and that's respect and decorum.
I gave you respect.
You're not giving it, sir.
You never answered my question.
Sir, that's it. Don't test me.
Okay.
Don't test me.
I won't test you. Answer my question.
This isn't a one-day deal. It's not a one-day.
Would anybody else like to speak respectfully to the Highlands Council? Yes, ma'am, please.
Hello, Marceline Thompson, Sakasana. This is my first meeting. I'm happy to meet everybody here. And I've been following in the newspapers and council since it started, so it's more curiosity as to how this works. But in response to, and I don't know the gentleman's name, is that when you were talking about the relationship with the DEP, and I believe, Mr. Elstead, that you said that you can't instruct or do anything, but can you offer opinions?
Absolutely, we can.
Okay, so you could have like a dialogue and say, these are the things that are coming to our attention.
And we do have that dialogue, and just to bring you up to date, we, again, are part of the DEP, but a separate entity. We can have dialogue with the DEP. We cannot tell them what to do. There are certain authorities that are granted to us. There are certain other authorities that are granted to the DEP. And we operate by a law that was passed by the legislature that tells us everything we can and can't do. And this is the act right here. And so, while there may be things that we wish to do or would like to do, and while we're very empathetic to the situation that residents are facing, there is a real legal limit to what we're capable of doing.
That I understand, but what you're telling me is that there's opportunity for dialogue.
That's correct, and we've opened up the doors for that dialogue.
That's great, and that everything, then that would be shared what's the process for sharing that with both?
As you saw tonight, the executive director presented a report, and that's what our plan is, to report back to the public on any findings, updates, and in addition to the interactions with the DEP, we're also interacting and have opened the door of dialogue with Roxbury Township as well, the municipal officials there, so that everybody's within the loop.
Okay, excellent, because that's exactly what needs to happen for people to be conversing together. And yes, and then the organization here getting in there and see how they can also offer some support as well. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Anybody else like to make comments this evening? Okay, if that's the fact, we will close the public portion. Council members have any comments on Fenimore this evening?
I don't want anybody to think that we're not concerned about this. We got environmental health in Passaic County. We have the Ford dump in Ringwood, which is poisoning people. We have the pond problem in Pompton Lake. A third of the town is polluted. I have a recent problem, although minor compared to those two in Clifton. This kinds of things really bother me. Don't think that we're not concerned about this. If we had the legal right to do something about it, we would. But what we're limited to is what we're legally allowed to do. Allowing for a future solar site, if it's capped and remediated properly, is all we get. You can rescind that but it has no impact on whether or not it's remediated properly. And I am concerned. Whoever said that there's a stream under it. Same thing with Pompton, the same thing with the Ford plant. I agree with you. If there's underground aquifers, I don't know what capping is. I'm not a scientist. I don't know how they cap it, but I don't know how to stop pollution for streams that run under polluted properties. Water tends to go down into the ground. So I am concerned about it. We get yelled at for things the legislature did. We're a planning board. We don't have legislative authority. We don't have legal authority to do some things. I get that people are frustrated for everything they come here and yell us about. But believe me, we go home, at least I go home, I've been talking to some of my colleagues, we all go home and are very concerned about this. When it's kids, it's not just kids, but when it's kids involved, it really does grab at you. And I wish we could say to you, we're going to stop this, but that would be political pandering. Because we don't have a legal way of stopping it. We're informing the DEP. They're the people that have the shotgun. And the legislature are the people that you vote for locally that should be protected. If you come here and yell at us, go to their office every day and scream. You might get something done when they're worried about getting reelected. We're all sympathetic to every issue that comes before here. It just gets really frustrating when we get yelled at for things that we really can't do anything about. I wish I could. I can vote for people in the Highlands, or Clifton, I live in Clifton. That's not in the Highlands, but my legislators are in Essex County. We're the only county in town of the state. So I can't even vote to get somebody out who's not supporting what I want. They generally do support what I want. So you got to target the people in the legislature. The assembly runs every 2 years, and get done what you want to have done. That's the political process. But coming and yelling at a planning board that's trying to decide whether somebody's in compliance with the act and planning, it isn't really going to help you. It may make you feel better, but it's not going to help you.
Thank you, Councilman Chase.
You mentioned, Margaret, that the letter to Bob Mark, the Commissioner of the DEP, is online. Are there copies here for these people to see? Because, I have there's a letter July 3rd to Commissioner Martin. There's a letter July 15th to the town manager in Roxbury Township. I'll just read just the first paragraph to Commissioner Martin. On behalf of the New Jersey Highlands Water Protection and Planning Council, which is the Highlands Council or Council of Water Council, I don't know what that means. We are writing to express our concerns regarding the Fenimore landfill in Roxbury, New Jersey. And it goes on to say what we're concerned about. So, someone was saying that we have no input with the DEP. We're sending a letter to the commissioner that as the council, we have concerns what's happening at the Fenimore landfill. So, and we also sent a letter to the Roxbury town manager. So, basically the same letter. So, we're doing what we can do. I wish we could do more. Just as council member, my colleague here said that. People should have
He's from my county.
He's my freeholder. People should have first names, not like second names. You know what I mean? So James, Bruce, I call him Mr. Bruce once in a while. But we're doing what we can do, and I feel for you. And I've been involved with environmental concerns in my county, in my town. And if I lived in your situation, I'd be here yelling at us too, but we're the wrong people to yell at. It's too bad that the DEP doesn't have public meetings that you can go and yell at them. And the thought of not only the health risks that you have, but the stream running perpetually and for probably forever underneath that horrible situation is not only going to pollute Drake's Brook, but the Raritan River and whatever else. It's not going to end there. It's a terrible thing, and I hope you continue to put pressure on your legislators, the governor, and the DEP.
Yes.
What my last two colleagues have said is true. The pressure has to come from you people on the DEP. Unfortunately, not all DEP agencies in the state of New Jersey are created equal. What is a priority for the DEP in 1 year is not necessarily a priority for the DEP in another year. You are obviously not a priority for the DEP. There's no question about it. My estimation, they don't care about what's going on in Roxbury. I think that's become very evident. And you've got to combat that by getting back at the DEP and pressing them to the limit so that you foster a situation where they have no choice but to listen to the people in Roxbury. You've got to put the pressure on them, full court press, because you're obviously not a priority. You are here. You know, we've tried to do what we could do here, and you know we're continuing to move in that direction. But you're obviously not a priority there.
Mr. Chairman?
Please, Tracy.
Just want to say that I still think we should consider rescinding our approval. And the reason is because it's the one thing we can do. I know there's not support for that amongst the council members, but I think my hope is that as we learn more information, we get these reports from our executive director about the conversations that are ongoing with DEP. We've also opened up communications with Roxbury. That information will inform the council and show the council that our approval of the solar facility is being seen as an approval of the use of that site and the capping of that site as DEP is planning to have the thing resolved. And the people feel that that resolution that DEP is moving forward with is not adequate to protect their health. We have talked about here, and everybody understands, I mean, we have the highest number of Superfund sites in the nation, this New Jersey. And everybody on this council has probably experienced one of those sites in their own municipalities. So we know about the water and the air pollution associated with these sites. And certainly, the situation at Roxbury is very similar to what we have experienced elsewhere. And if we're not using the one thing that we can do in order to put the pressure there, then we are passing the buck. I'm sorry, I still feel we're showing a weakness here by not being willing to remove or rescind our approval for that solar facility. And I think we should still consider to do that.
Any other council members like to speak? Mr. Dowd?
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, I supported Tracy's last motion to do that. I still support that. But two things. Can we request from the director or chair to get a report on an environmental report on the flow of that water, how much flow goes in, how much flow goes out, the actual determination of how deep it is. I think we have the right to request it. I don't know if we'll get it, but I think we can request it because it has to do with water and in the Highlands. So I think we do. I think we have the right to request it. So I would put that on the record that I would like that requested and ask if we could get a full report on the how much water flow, the depth, where it goes, the direction, X, Y, and Z. So we actually really know what we're talking about and not. Because I am now more concerned because it really wasn't expressed that way from the public. And now when you really visualize where how water runs and it gets to the headway, it actually is, if it is going right down through the bottom, that site capping is not going to alleviate the...
Let me just ask you, I'm actually agreeing with this, but I want to ask you a question. So we get a report and it says that capping won't do anything. We rescind our approval for building anything on there, essentially.
Yeah.
What is that?
Two things. I think
Because we can't
I
force
think
them
that
to...
I think it's another step to asking for help, and I think it's time that you step away from it. When you attack the DEP as much as you can, but I think it's time to really start putting pressure on the Congress. That has, you know, if you want to go back and look at research history, Florio was one of the top guys who wrote a lot of the laws and so there has been history in our Congress to deal with this kind of stuff. If we're not getting what we need from the state DEP, from their state legislators, we need to start.
Mr. Chairman?
Start going to Congress.
Yes.
May I request that at some point during August meeting, we have an executive session on this matter to revisit a resolution to rescind?
Well, we can certainly put an executive session for Fenimore on the agenda for next week.
I support that.
So,
I'm going to ask you. It's not a personnel matter, or we're not involved in a lawsuit, so why would it be?
That's potential.
Potential litigation.
Anything has potential,
Well,
I
there's already-
just for, the way you're looking at me.
There's already, I think, 14 lawsuits
Are we
already.
part of any of those lawsuits?
No, but
Are we
actually,
contemplating to be a part of any of those lawsuits?
there's a large potential that if we were to take action, that we would then be engaged in a potential lawsuit. So that's the basis for going into executive session. I think that I would just impress upon my fellow council members to keep in mind that there's two very separate issues here. One is the proper cleaning, capping of the landfill. The other one is the use of the properly capped and cleaned landfill. And our jurisdiction is strictly limited to what can happen on top of a landfill that's properly capped and cleaned. The use of a properly capped and cleaned landfill, I think everybody would still agree for solar is an appropriate use, which is why I think that it's very important that we keep in mind that the issue here is the properly cleaned and capped landfill, not the use of solar on top of a clean and capped landfill. We need to be very careful not to confuse the two issues.
Kurt, one of
And if
my
we
main
go on there, we'll
concerns.
never have another say on it, because brownfield, that's a brownfield already, it's been declared that, it's inherently beneficial, and if the island pulls out, if we pull out of there, chances are we'll never get an opportunity to keep our finger on that pulse. As long as we have our finger on that pulse, we have a say. You pull out of there, you have no say. No.
We don't have a say now. We just said we don't have a say.
I didn't finish.
Mayor Dowd.
I still have this floor, then,
Sorry.
what's his name? Bruce?
No.
Cut me off, as the astute politician that he is.
Mr. Bruce.
Mr. Bruce is one of the.
Well, your 3 minutes was up.
My 3 minutes. The only other issue that I would like to bring back up, which I brought up last meeting, is timetables on approvals. I think they're very important for this council. When something is approved and it's not moved on in a certain period of time, then it should lose its approval. We do it at municipal level, I don't know why we can't do it here. It's just, I think it's in our purview to do that, and I think we would like that looked at by the attorney and have a report back to the council if we can make that amendment.
And that's a policy discussion that the entire council with our chair can certainly
Yes.
entertain.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
My main concern is some of the comments that I heard here tonight regarding the stream of the water under. And I'm very concerned that even if it's capped properly, is it then, with this potential water problem, is it then really an area that should be developed, or should other things be done there? That's why I want to talk, some of the things I want to talk about.
Well, our staff has a monthly meeting scheduled with the DEP, and I think that it's safe to say that our executive director knows that this is one of the topics they're going to discuss with the DEP officials.
It's the first time I heard it tonight. It's concerning.
I'm also.
Okay.
I don't feel comfortable with approval of other conversations.
Any other council members?
Second.
There's a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you very much.